Hey, Liron here. I want to share with you a technique that in my opinion is really important because I use it for every single painting I make. It's my go-to of how I paint things, how I render them. I call this patches, and let's jump right in. I'm going to show you what it entails. This is what I'm trying to do. I'm going to put a color here, and yes, the name is a hint, patches. And what I'm gonna do is just grab whatever. I have Pyrrole Scarlet here, a bit of orange. I'm gonna place that right next to the first one, okay? And then let's perhaps just take a bit of red and paint it here, like so. Now, the problem a lot of beginners make, and I'm gonna show you exactly how I use it for a painting process with a quick demo here in just a second, so make sure you stick around. The problem a lot of beginners have, if I'm gonna grab a piece of test paper here, is they use a lot of water, and what ends up happening is none of their colors have independence. So when you paint, it all mixes together. Now, there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you're after, but the ability to put patches of paint one next to another and have them preserve their independence, relative independence at least, so that you can see their shape. Their shape doesn't spread out and everything is a mess, I think is a pretty important ability. Now, here's how you do it on a more practical level. I'm gonna grab my palette and I'm gonna show you exactly what I'm doing. I'm taking a bit of water from my water bucket. I'm digging into the well, and what I'm looking for is something that's not too watery. So this, for example, it's too watery. It beads too much. It reacts too much to when I move the palette. And here you can see the shine from my upper light. So let's look at this. What I'm looking for, it gets closer. Can you tell? Gets a little closer. See, there's still quite a lot of movement. So I'm gonna grab more. And now we're talking about a consistency where the paint will last once I put it on paper. Okay, let me show it to you once again. So I'm going to grab my Carbazole Violet here, okay? Now, I know instinctively that when I do this, it's still too wet, but if I go a couple of more times, it's going to start having enough pigment to where it lasts. And this is something you'll learn on an intuitive level. So once again, if I come back with a damp brush, and what I'm doing is basically taking water from my well and just dabbing a couple of times. If I do this, it's still going to be too wet. See? It's too wet, doesn't have enough presence. But if I go at it a couple more times, you'll get something that has presence, that lasts, and look at how good it looks with the violet, by the way. And this is patches. Now, it doesn't have to be really thick paint. As long as you have good control of the wetness, you can actually use a little bit of wetter washes. The main thing is that their level of wetness is going to be relatively similar. So let me show you. And sometimes you'll have to paint a little larger. Okay, so I'm going to grab a bit of phthalo blue here. It's going to be a little more watery than before. And once I do this, see, they will preserve their independence. There's going to be minimal mixing. Now, if you can do this real time and build up, oops, there's something here, a hair, and build up the wash, that's how I actually paint. So let me show you with a demo. So the way I use this when I'm actually painting is I use it to paint a layer that represents everything I'm seeing. Sometimes I'll take breaks between different areas, but when I'm focused on an area, I'm using this way. So let me show you. So I'm looking at whatever it is I'm painting. I'm going to put the reference, of course, on the screen for you. And whenever I recognize a color, I put that in. So that's going to be a color. Sometimes I'll go stronger. Right out the gate. If I know it needs to be stronger, I'll go stronger, right? But this time it's not really necessary. And I start to use the different colors I'm seeing in patches. So this color right here, it goes a little more pink. This is not going to be a complete demo. I'm not going to show you the whole thing. I want to show you how I approach this on a layer by layer basis. And then it goes darker. So I'm going to start darkening this, maybe a bit of blue in there too. And I'm just applying it in the form of patches. Once again, it's a patch. I'm gonna need a bit more of this purple, a bit more of this red, and so you get a patch. And I personally love painting this way. And then I go into this area. I'm seeing it goes a little more blue. So let's go ahead and add a bit more blue. Just like that. Now, sometimes a patch is going to go lighter or almost watery. So this entire area right here is lighter. So I'm going to keep it lighter. And I do recognize a bit of red up top. It's a relatively warm red, actually. I can use a bit of the orange that I have left over from there. I'm going to apply that. And then if I just need wetness, I can come back with a clean brush and help kind of combine some washes that I put in just by adding clean water. And that is pretty much how I approach painting this way. Let's do another one. I really like, there's another nice one there. So the bottom area is fairly purpley blue, and you see I don't even have to mix on the palette. I can just place the color there. By the way, a really fun thing to do if you're already in it, you're having fun, just put a bunch of water and see what happens. Let the paint move and breathe. It's so much fun. Look at this beautiful transition there that happened with zero effort because we let the paint do the work, right? So you're getting a bit of an extra tip here. And then for the top, if I want to go lighter, I come back with a relatively clean, damp brush. There you go, you have a plum here. Let's do another one. Let's start with the light section. So this is light. And then I recognize a bit of orangey colors here, just a bit of them. And then they turn more red patches. And then they turn more purpley. And maybe towards the bottom, they're actually a little more blue. And I think this is a very holistic way of simply allowing the paint to do the work for you. Now, the tricky bit is matching the wetness. This works best and with minimal movement if you can do it this way with, I would say, a value. If 0 is the lightest, 10 is the darkest, somewhere around the 4 out of 10 darkness, maybe even 5 or maybe even 3, it works really well. Sometimes it can work with more of a 3 or 2. I'm just giving numbers, but you know, it's a matter of feeling. You have to feel it out. But the very first thing I would do is place a color, place another, preferably vastly different color right next to it, and try and see if you can preserve their separation. Sometimes doing it multiple ways, like not just once, but 1, 2, 3 can help. Okay, you see me doing it all throughout this video. Sometimes I do it multiple times. It kind of blends it in a more organized way. But in any case, this is the technique. If you found this helpful, I would really appreciate if you check out my frustration-free watercolor course or my watercolor realism course 2025. Make it the year that you take control of watercolor by letting go and letting them do most of the work for you. And I want to thank everyone who supports me over on Patreon. You make it possible for me to make tons of videos for everyone to enjoy. So if you want to receive, by the way, credits at the end of the videos, if you're not supporting me on Patreon, go ahead, check that out. You will also receive access to multiple exclusive processes that you can find only there. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you again soon.